My name is Sergeant Jenna Flores, 32 years old. For 6 months, I had been an instrument of lethal order in a sandbox halfway across the world. I drove 300 miles through a North Carolina blizzard, not for a medal, but for a simple Thanksgiving hug. What I got instead was a freezing house, a stench that hit me like a physical blow, and a crumpled note that read, "Mom and I went on a cruise. You take care of Victor." They left a dying man, my terminally ill stepfather, to shiver in his own filth, using the house savings I'd earned. They think I'm just a soldier who follows orders. They don't know that every soldier has a non-negotiable creed: I will never leave a fallen comrade. And Victor, the broken Marine on the couch, was my comrade now. They thought I was their bank and their babysitter. They were about to learn I was their executioner. The drive from Fort Bragg was a blur of exhaustion and anticipation. The North Carolina highway was pure, chaotic slush, but all I focused on was the heat of the house and the sight of my husband, Brady. Brady Mitchell, the charming civilian, the real estate consultant who never sold a house but always managed to look great doing it. I was the provider. He was the project. I loved him, or I loved the man I thought he was. I navigated the chaotic grocery store with field ops efficiency, a turkey, Cabernet, and a small container of peach yogurt for Victor. The whole neighborhood looked like a holiday postcard when I finally turned onto our street, except my house. It was a black, silent void. The moment I pushed the door open, the truth was physical. The air was a knife. "Brady, I'm home." Silence. I dropped the groceries. The wine bottles clinked, a final, desperate greeting. I checked the thermostat. System off. Current temp 52 degrees. 52 degrees. My heart started to beat a military march against my ribs. Brady was too lazy to turn off the heat. He was too lazy to remember to eat most days. He did this deliberately. They wanted to save money while sipping margaritas. Then the second blow hit. The smell. Acrid, heavy, ammonia. The stench of human waste and deep neglect. I knew that smell from deployment, from bad situations. My combat training took over. Tactical triage. I ran to the living room. Victor Harmon, the Marine hero, the man who stood 6'2" and never met a challenge he couldn't dominate, was a skeletal ghost shaking on his rocking chair. "Victor," I whispered, rushing to his side. His eyes, sunken and bruised, focused on me. I saw not pain, but overwhelming shame. His sweats were soaked. The floor beneath the chair was cold, sticky with his waste. They hadn't just left him. They had disabled his means of survival. I stood up, the heat of a righteous fury replacing the frigid air. The note was on the kitchen island, Brady's sloppy handwriting. "Mental health break. Since you're back, you handle Victor. Back Monday." And that final, careless, cheerful smiley face at the bottom. In that kitchen, the loving, tired wife died. The soldier took command. This wasn't a marriage. It was a deployment gone sideways. The mission: find the enemy, secure the target, Victor, initiate counter-offensive. They think their little vacation is safe. They don't know that every minute they spend tanning, I'm building a case against them that no amount of lawyer speak can overturn. Hit subscribe now and comment "honor" if you know that loyalty is the only currency that matters. The first phase of Operation Cold Justice is complete. Now for the intelligence gathering. The initial triage was brutal but necessary. I moved Victor, impossibly light, like a bundle of dry sticks, into the master bathroom. I ran a hot bath, treating his humiliation with clinical, military respect. He was too weak to walk, but not too weak to maintain his dignity, refusing to let me feed him until he was clean and dressed in my husband's oversized flannel pajamas. The furnace was groaning, filling the house with a desperate heat that slowly fought the November cold. I fed him Campbell's soup, salty broth, and crumbled saltines, the taste of childhood comfort. When he finally fell asleep, the tension in his face eased, replaced by a temporary, fragile peace. But the house was quiet now, with the silence before an ambush, and my fury demanded intelligence. I walked back to the kitchen, where the family iPad sat charging. Brady was always too lazy for a passcode. I was looking for the calendar, but an Instagram notification dropped down. Hannah XOXO tagged you in a photo. Who was Hannah? I tapped it. The screen blasted me with tropical colors, a brilliant turquoise ocean, a fruity cocktail, and Brady, my husband, wearing oversized aviators and a blinding grin, his arm draped around a bleach-blonde girl who couldn't have been over 24. The caption, "Bon voyage with my fave guy. #sugar daddy." The term hit me like a physical punch. Sugar daddy. My hands, now shaking not from cold but from pure adrenaline, immediately found the Navy Federal Credit Union app. I needed to know the cost of the lie. Every cent I earned, every hazardous duty allowance, the entire roof fund I had saved by eating MREs on deployment, it all went into that joint account. The loading wheel spun for an eternity. The numbers flashed onto the screen. Available balance, $12.45. $12.45. My vision tunneled. I tapped the history. Nov 20, Carnival Cruise Line. Nov 21, Hard Rock Casino. ATM withdrawal $5,200. The roof fund. $6,000 I had transferred for a contractor who never existed. He hadn't just cheated on me, he had bankrupted me. He had stolen the roof over our heads to finance a week of debauchery while his dying stepfather lay freezing inches away. A primal scream built in my throat, but the soldier in me cut it short. Crying was for victims, and I was not a victim. I hurled the iPad at the drywall. It shattered with a sickening crack that shocked the tears away. The ambush was over. Now the counteroffensive. I wiped my face and walked back to Victor. He was awake, his eyes clear, sharp, and cold. He had heard the noise, seen the rage. He sat at attention, a war hero in a stained chair. "She's waiting for me to die, Jenna," he rasped, his voice sandpaper dry. "She calls me a broken ATM." He pointed a trembling finger to the wall, a bare spot where his Vietnam medals, his Bronze Star, his Purple Heart had hung. "eBay," he whispered. "She sold them last week." Selling a man's medals, it wasn't just greed. It was desecration. Then the final, monstrous betrayal. His morphine. The bottle was clear, perfectly clear, and the liquid tasted of nothing. "She filled it with tap water," I roared, slamming the bottle down. "For a Coach bag? This wasn't neglect. This was torture." As the rage threatened to consume me, Victor reached out, his grip surprisingly firm. "I was a regional bank manager, Sergeant," he whispered, a terrifying ghost of a smile touching his lips. Do you really think I'd let that woman have access to the main vault? My eyes widened. I have a trust, he said. $3 million. And she doesn't know it exists. He looked at the empty space on the wall, then at me. They broke the code. Now I want to change the beneficiary. I want you to help me burn their world to the ground. Are you with me, Sergeant? I looked at this comrade, my father. I squeezed his hand. What are your orders, Dad? The game had changed. The initial shock of the ambush was over, replaced by a cold, crystalline focus. Victor's command was clear: dismantle their world. The first priority was to gather ironclad evidence that would withstand any legal challenge Brady and Elaine might mount. The soldier in me took over, initiating a multi-phase psychological operation. Phase 1, evidence collection. I took out my phone and meticulously photographed the room. The close-up of Victor's cracked lips, the wide shot showing the thermostat reading 52 degrees, the amber prescription bottle full of clear tap water, and the barren nail where his medals had hung. Every image was a damning piece of the prosecution's case. Phase 2, human intelligence. I crossed the snowy lawn to Edith's house. Edith, the 75-year-old retired neighbor who never missed a thing. Over Earl Grey tea, with my phone recording in my pocket, I played the concerned daughter, gathering the timeline. Edith confirmed seeing Brady leave with that blonde girl, Hannah, loading the suitcases on Thursday, and confirming that not a single person had come to check on Victor for 3 days. Witness secured, confirming abandonment and the presence of a mistress. As I returned, a silver Lexus was pulling into the driveway. Patricia, Victor's attorney. Patricia, sharp and steely, didn't need any explanation. The stench and the sight of Victor told the story. When she saw the $3.2 million figure in the Victor Harmon Revocable Living Trust portfolio, her professional mask slipped. She explained that Victor had structured the trust 15 years ago, before Elaine, ensuring his real money was hidden. Under the existing will, 50% went to Elaine and 50% to Brady. "Strike them out," Victor commanded, his voice fueled by pure, triumphant spite. 100% to be divided, 50% to the Wounded Warrior Project, and 50%, along with the role of sole trustee and executor, to Jenna. I had just inherited a fortune, and more importantly, a duty. Patricia immediately began drafting the amendment, which she could notarize right there in the living room. Phase 3, the bait. Before Victor signed, I needed one last piece of proof: their refusal to choose him over their vacation. I opened the text thread with Brady. I typed the lie. "Brady, please answer. It's Victor. He's in bad shape. I think he's dying. He's asking for you and Elaine. The ambulance is on the way." He responded instantly, the 3 little dots appearing, then disappearing. The phone buzzed. "Babe, chill out. Don't be dramatic. You know how he is. Mom says he's just looking for attention. We're in the middle of a dinner show. We can't just fly back. Handle it." He had just signed his own death warrant. I took a screenshot. Hook, line, and sinker. I watched Victor sign the jagged, raw, but undeniable signature onto the will amendment. The deal was sealed. The family on the boat was dancing their last oblivious dance. The money is secured, and the traitors are confirmed. But Victor's time is almost up. His last request is coming, a request that transcends money. Comment "the plan" if you think their surprise return home is going to be the most humiliating moment of their lives. The stage is set. Saturday night descended on the house, colder and heavier than before. The wind howled outside, but the true silence was in the living room, broken only by Victor's breathing. It had changed. It was the Chain-Stokes respiration, the death rattle. The deep, loud gasps would slow, shallow out, and then stop completely for terrifying silences that I counted against the ticking clock. I sat by his side, holding his hand, a soldier maintaining watch over a fallen comrade. He was ready, but the scavengers were not here. I knew I had to give them one last chance, not for them, but to complete the evidence trail for the court of public opinion and, ultimately, for myself. I didn't call Brady, who had already hung up on decency. I called Melissa, Brady's sister, and initiated a FaceTime call, first ensuring the screen record button was blinking a tiny red dot of confirmation. The screen erupted in harsh blue light, showing a chaotic piano bar, red neon, and a drunken sing-along of Sweet Caroline. Melissa, sunburnt and wearing a tacky vacation mode tiara, was shouting over the music. "Put your mother on, now!" I screamed. Melissa, confused and annoyed, handed the phone to Elaine. Elaine, flushed with alcohol and wearing a sequined top, grabbed the phone. "Jenna, what is it now? We are trying to enjoy the captain's dinner." My voice was shaking with fury and grief as I angled the camera down to show Victor, his chest heaving, his skin gray. "Elaine, listen. He is in Chain-Stokes breathing. He has hours. You need to fly back tonight. There's a 6 a.m. flight." Elaine didn't even look at her dying husband. She looked at me with pure, dismissive disdain. "Are you crazy? Do you know how much last-minute tickets cost? They're like $800 a seat. They're non-refundable. We'd lose everything." Brady leaned in, slightly slurring his words. "Babe, seriously, just keep him comfortable. Give him more morphine or whatever." That was the final, monstrous line. "I can't give him morphine, Brady," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "because your mother filled the bottle with tap water." Elaine's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You're lying. You're just jealous." And then, with a sharp finality that defined their relationship, she hissed, "Do your job and let us enjoy our vacation. We'll see you Monday." The screen went black. The silence rushed back, deafening. The little red recording icon was still blinking. I slowly lowered the phone. Victor's eyes were open. He had heard it all. Non-refundable. Do your job. A single, thick tear rolled from his eye, not of pain, but of absolute heartbreak. The betrayal was complete. He looked at me, then at Patricia, the lawyer, who had been sitting silently in the shadows. He gave a single, sharp nod. Execute the mission. I watched him sign the new will and the trust amendment, his signature jagged, raw, and full of final revenge. Hours later, the end came. Victor asked for a final memory. Peaches, Mom's cobbler. I found a can of peaches and cinnamon, heating it on the stove until the sweet, spicy aroma filled the house. The smell of home and safety he was denied by his own kin. I fed him slowly, spoon by spoon. Then, with a surge of desperate strength, he took his heavy gold Marine Corps signet ring off his finger. "Take it," he commanded, pressing the warm metal into my hand. "You are my daughter. Do not let them sell my life for a cruise ticket." "I won't, Dad," I vowed. He closed his eyes. "At ease, Sergeant," he whispered. And at 0300 hours, Victor Harmon took his final, shallow breath. The struggle was over. I stood and raised my right hand to the brim of an invisible brow, giving a slow, somber salute to the man who was my father. "Mission accomplished, sir," I whispered. I slipped his ring onto my thumb. The tears came, but they were silent and quickly wiped away. The mourning was over. The preparation for war had begun. Monday morning broke cold and bright. By 0600 hours, 3 hours after Victor passed, the funeral home van backed out of the driveway. Direct cremation, I had instructed the director, refusing any service or obituary. I wasn't going to give Elaine her stage. All that remained of the 6'2" Marine was 5 pounds of ash in a heavy, cold brass urn, which I picked up at 800. I spent the rest of the morning dismantling my own existence in the house, packing my gear with methodical precision. By 900, I stood in the master bedroom, putting on my Army service uniform, the dress blues. The heavy fabric, the crisp white shirt, the ribbons, they transformed me from a victim into an instrument of state authority. Sergeant Flores was ready for duty. I walked out and set the stage. The dining table was pulled into the center of the living room, directly in line with the front door. The chairs were pushed back. They would have to stand for judgment. On the table, I laid the evidence. The iPad, cued to the screen recording of the FaceTime call. The bank statements, highlighted with the casino and cruise charges. The printout of Brady's cruel text. The amber prescription bottle, filled with clear water. And finally, the heavy brass urn. Next to the urn, I placed my unloaded Sig Sauer P320. It wasn't a threat. It was a psychological barrier, a clear sign the conversation was serious. At 10:15 a.m., the rumble of Brady's SUV approached. I heard their voices, loud, slurred, and smelling of stale plain air and coconut sunscreen. "Man, it is freezing out here," Brady complained. The door swung open. Brady, Hannah, Elaine, and Melissa stumbled into the foyer, dropping their bags. Brady froze when he saw the uniform, the urn, and the gun. "Jenna, what is this? Why are you wearing your uniform?" Elaine pushed past him. "Where is Victor? I hope you changed his sheets." I stood up slowly. "Victor isn't in his room, Elaine," I said, my voice steady. I raised my white-gloved hand and pointed a single finger at the brass urn. "He's right there. Permanently relieved of duty at 0300 yesterday morning. Cremated, as per his final orders. No service, no chance for you to pretend you gave a damn." Elaine screamed, collapsing onto the sofa, performing her grief. Brady jumped on the offensive, trying to gaslight me, calling me sick and hysterical. I didn't argue. I simply picked up the remote and pressed play. The grainy video of Victor, skeletal but burning with final anger, filled the TV screen. His raspy voice echoed through the room. "I am recording this statement because I know my wife Elaine and her son Brady will lie. I heard them. I heard my wife say the tickets were non-refundable. I owe them nothing. They are not my family. They are scavengers." The screen cut to black. The room was silent. The door clicked open, and Patricia, the attorney, walked in. "Court is in session," I said. Patricia delivered the verdict. Victor's trust was worth $3.2 million. Elaine's eyes bulged with greed. "I'm his wife. That money is mine." Patricia didn't blink. "I, Victor Harmon, do hereby amend my trust distribution. To my wife, Elaine Mitchell, and her son, Brady Mitchell, I intentionally leave nothing." Half went to the Wounded Warrior Project. The other half, along with the house and the role of sole trustee, went to me. They were cut out entirely. Brady tried to call it illegal. Patricia informed him that with the video and witness evidence of neglect, no judge would give them a cent. I added the sting. You stole my savings to play sugar daddy to a girl who looks like she's barely legal. Hannah, seeing the money vanish, immediately called an Uber and walked out without a word. The final blow landed on Elaine. I held up the water-filled morphine bottle. I had the contents of this tested. 100% tap water. Tampering with a controlled substance and elder abuse is a felony. The police detective unit is very interested in speaking with you. Elaine staggered back. Patricia handed Brady an eviction notice. You have 24 hours to remove your personal effects. This is now an asset of the trust. Miss Flores has issued an immediate eviction notice. As I walked to my truck, Brady ran out, barefoot in the snow, groveling, throwing his mother under the bus. I pulled off my wedding rings, the symbols of my servitude, and threw them at his chest, watching them disappear into the snow. You went AWOL on this marriage, Brady. I am discharging you dishonorably. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life. As I drove away, I looked in the mirror. Brady and Elaine were already screaming at each other in the driveway. I reached up and touched Victor's heavy gold Marine Corps ring, now resting on a chain around my neck. Family wasn't blood. It was loyalty. I wasn't just a survivor. I was a victor.